And we're joined today by Kevin Wennekes, Vice President of Research for CATAAlliance. Kevin is very involved in the first responders community. We've just heard Steve Palmer give us a good review of some of their work. And Kevin, one of the areas that's quite critical is the area of technology roadmaps. Why is that so important as part of this project?
Well, it's a growing platform for better understanding and looking at today and looking at where you need to be 10 years out. What are the gaps? And once you've identified what are those gaps, you work backwards to identify what are the technologies we need to fill those gaps. What are the skills that are going to be required by the people to work with that technology? How are university curriculums going to need to change? How are the people who are going to use the technology come to learn to adapt to that technology and achieve those end objectives? So it's a critical instrument that's been used now for the past 10 years within government to help industries better understand where are you today, where are you going to be 10 years from now, and how do we get there?
And as a research professional, I know you remind me always about rigorous methodology. So how do you go about creating one of those maps? What's your game plan here?
Well, there's, in fact, Industry Canada, the Technology Roadmap Secretariat, has a very defined process for creating one of these roadmaps. In fact, it's call it a defined process, but as it's intensely built around public consultation, the discussions themselves are not defined, and it's really a means of allowing people to contribute to identify, especially from an industry point of view, where are we today in terms of that technology, and where are we going to be tomorrow. So using their methodology, which takes a little over a year to a year and a half to do, involving a steering committee, which if you're listening to this today, we'll be looking for members for, so please contact me. And then furthermore, a series of public consultations with industry experts, government leaders, and academic input to identify where are we, how do we get there, and what are we going to do that.
And I understand part of that is a fairly large event you've got planned for Calgary on October 21st and 22nd. What's the nature of that event? And is that part of the whole road mapping methodology?
It is. What we've proposed, in fact, it's a little outside of the scope of a technology roadmap. The Calgary event is our second annual vendor outreach forum. Our first forum was in Toronto last year, very successful, where we were able to bring together first responder procurement experts in technology and industry to discuss what do you need, how can we work with you to develop what you need, and to explain here's what we have, because in many instances first responders were citing the need for a certain technology or a certain process, and in fact it existed, but because there's typically a large wall between first responders and industry providers for the sake of retaining that procurement process integrity, first responders and vendors don't often have a chance to meet. So this provided an open platform where industry vendors and first responders were able to meet and discuss those issues. So in the context of our upcoming forum, we are going to be dedicating a series of time to discussing the technology roadmap, outlining exactly what it is we hope to achieve, and getting preliminary input into what are those technology areas that we should be focusing on, and furthermore, who will be some of the first partners that we'll be working with in achieving that roadmap.
And Kevin, in addition to the Canadian Police Research Centre and their tech roadmap, what other security initiatives are you involved with?
Well, there's a number of immediate priorities we're looking to engage or re-engage in. CATA, as you know, conducted back in 2003 the very first advanced security profile, which helped identify 700 industry players in Canada who played in the advanced security sector. So we want to revisit that database of companies. We know there's been some attrition, we know there have been new players, and we want to have a greater in-depth look at the industry sector and how it's being impacted. We're also, as you know, we're conducting our China Public Security Expo Canadian Pavilion in Shenzhen this November. The pavilion itself is about half full, so we will still be looking for companies interested in making inroads into China's public security sector to contact us and learn how to participate in that as well. And of course, we would like to revisit the survey we had conducted with CPRC and first responders back in 97 or 2007. which looked at how our first responders using technology. The first study aimed at the chiefs, and this time we really want to look at how are all first responders from the front line back using technology, what technology is that, and how can then industry fill that gap. So if you're interested in any of these studies or any of these initiatives, I encourage you to please give me a call or drop me an email. All that contact information, of course, on the CATA website.
Kevin Wennekes, Vice President of Research with CATAAlliance. Very interesting insights into the technology roadmap, into the ongoing work of the Canadian Police Research Centre, and then just a little larger footprint on some of the other security projects that CATA and partners are involved with. So Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, John.